All right, guys, there we go. Welcome, JB and JC here, FFL Consultants, live for October. Ask Us Anything event for FFLs only. If you're new to our event, thank you for joining us. And make sure you sign up for all our future events by joining our email sign up list right on our website. So there's a phone number, there's a contact information. We'll bring that back to you at the end, just in case you are missing it here. Don't worry about taking a picture. We'll get that right back for you. All right. Here is today's agenda. First of all, we're going to give you the updates. We've got a lot of lawsuits floating around the internet, floating around the country at the state level, federal level. We're just going to kind of clue you into what's going on and what you need to be aware of and what you need not to worry about. We're going to talk about this crazy new governor over in Arkansas who signed into law, basically a marijuana medical card permission for concealed carry permit holders. So that's going to be interesting to talk about and how it affects you across the country. We'll do some state and federal law updates, inspection stats from last year, and some highlights you need to understand and know about, figure out where you are and which officers are on fire and where you need not worry. And then your rights, your right to refuse a transfer. We're going to spend a little time explaining this. We worked on a lawsuit last week with the client, and we actually learned some things we want to share with you. Over on the compliance corner section, we'll go over to 4473, some items for the upcoming implementation. Not a full review, just some updates. What you need to know regarding buying used guns. We're going to talk about the IOI enforcement myths. JC is going to review his classic magical, mystical, secret code of IOI enforcement issues. And then we're going to go with the 10-day delays for under 21, what it really means and how to understand it better, how it functions. We're getting a lot of calls on that. And then we're going to talk about law enforcement transfers. And then we're going to get to all of your questions on rapid fire. Ask Us Anything. So at first, let us bring in Nathan. Are you in the house, Nathan Sweeney? Go ahead. And yeah, we're going to bring on Nathan, guys. Nathan is one of our VIP clients. We've been with Nathan for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years already. But Nathan, I'm going to give you some highlight here for our audience. So go for it.
Yeah, so I just want to jump on. We recently offered a powered by MF dealer program is what we call it. So all of these services are services that we offer to dealers like you guys. I know some of you offer price Cerakoting yourselves, but any of them that you don't offer, we can offer for you. And then we also give you, you'll get 20 to 30% of the sale. And then we also have obviously our physical products down there, some different silencers and things like that that are 3D printed. We're adding more services to this, like parkerization and bluing and things like that as time goes. As a dealer, you get some benefits, but then also your employees. We have a employee program to encourage them to sell, so they can make between 4 and 12% of the sales that are paid to us, and then they obviously get discounts on things, training that will be available for them. So if you guys are interested in any of that, either sales@mercyfirearms.com or if you go to poweredbymf.com, has most of our services listed out on there. Not quite all the pictures for them yet. And then also a sign-up program there. So if you're interested, stop by the website or email me and ask any questions you have.
Yeah. So Nathan, this is pretty we've been out there. We love your program. We love your factory. We call it a factory. It's more than just a shop or a retailer. You've invested a lot of money and a lot of equipment. So you guys ready to handle the workload? And you're located in Central Indiana, am I right?
That's correct. Yeah, we're in Central Indiana. Yeah, I think we're pretty much ready for.
Yeah, so this is great. It can just supplement. If you don't have a CNC machine, you're not doing Cerakoting, don't know where to get it, not near you, contact Nathan, and we put a full support behind he and his team.
Yeah, and we can offer branding and marketing material to any dealer that wants it, that wants to sign up for us. So.
All right, Nathan, we'll have you back with a little video of your shop and some of the techniques and skills that your team exhibits. So thanks again for jumping on today, and we're going to get rolling here. Okay.
Great, thanks.
All right, guys, we're going to go over some FFL lawsuits that are pending. The phone is ringing off the hook on Friday. I want to talk about this one first with Miller versus Bonta. This is over in California. Everyone thought the assault weapon ban was ruled unconstitutional and revoked and appealed and squashed on Friday. But lo and behold, although we love Judge Benitez over in the Southern District of California, and although he is a very 2A supportive judge and making all the right moves, unfortunately, California and the ATF are anti-Judge Benitez, and they keep jumping in and for appeals and stays. And so we're very happy that this all happened on Friday. Again, you may have seen it in the news. You may have had your friends calling you. Everybody in California called us and told us the good news, only to find out that there's a 10-day stay on the enforcement of the rule. And we won't know until this coming Friday what actually happens next with the ruling that would otherwise abolish the assault weapon ban in California. All right, so stay tuned for that. Although we will not be having a November event for you guys, we will be sending out any new updates on any of these cases to you if and when they occur, so you can stay apprised of what's going on. And why do you need to worry about this? Well, it affects us all at the state level, because what happens in California, we know happens across the country eventually. So if they abolish this at the state level, we can hopefully lay that as precedent and use that as precedent for other lawsuits that are going on in some of the other blue states and anti-gun states. Regarding the pistol brace rule, just real quick, no update. Probably not till next year, meaning January, February. It's on the docket, but it's just sitting there, getting bounced around a little bit. Washington State and Oregon, same thing. We're looking for the 10-round magazine limit ban to be repealed in Washington, but again, being bounced around at the state level. Oregon, you guys have been going through Measure 114 litigation and legislative battles for almost a year already. We hope that gets resolved in the next few months, but it doesn't look like anytime soon. As of a couple of weeks ago, I know the appeal just keeps getting bounced around to different courts and different districts, and sooner or later we'll hopefully figure out what's going on in Oregon and hopefully get guns back in the hands of the citizens. All right, actually, Oregon, you guys are still okay. It's just that we don't want that ban to be imposed like we have in Washington. Missouri, you guys with the Supreme Court ruled against your 2A Preservation Act. Although the state approved, actually, you guys won the lawsuit against the state, which would have restricted any laws against Second Amendment laws going into effect. It looks like the Supreme Court actually sided with the state and they appealed the ruling, and that's all up in the air again. So it would have been nice, but there's a lot of technicalities behind it. But basically, the citizens can't sue the state for this type of ruling, but there will be some guarding against the state imposing too many restrictions on the rights of gun owners. Again, just another very interesting bill to watch, and hopefully it finds some ground sooner or later. Oh, Vanderstock versus Garland over in Texas, the whole frame and receiver ruling. I think it was 2021 R05F. Anyway, that's been bounced around again. It's been vacated. It's been bumped up. It's been bumped down. It's been ruled against. It's been ruled for. And now it's on the docket to be heard by the Supreme Court again. And unfortunately, it's enforceable, so we can't run out and build ARs, and we can't build personally manufactured firearms without getting them registered with an FFL eventually. And the whole parts kit is still a big question mark. So if you're an FFL dealer, we still urge you to stay away from personally manufactured firearms or anything that's considered an 80% lower. All right, but it's still on the docket. We're still waiting to see what happens with this. Cargill versus Garland with the bump stocks. God, this has been going on since 2018, still bouncing around. It's still pending Supreme Court review. So don't get itchy, don't get antsy, don't get excited. We don't see that going anywhere before at least the end of the year, probably first quarter of next year. Another one over in California, Duncan versus Bonta, they did repeal the large cap magazine ban, although that's been reversed. And again, stayed pending appeal and review by the 9th District Court. So don't go running out buying any more 30 round magazines in California. Don't ship them there yet. We're still waiting on that one. And the last one we're talking about today is Bianchi versus Frosch over in Maryland with the new assault weapons ban. Hopefully that gets reviewed and repealed, and we can get back to normal in Maryland. But long story short, it's just that nothing is moving fast. Lots and lots of lawsuits. These are just the high-profile lawsuits. There's probably another 20 out there that are tagging on to what the outcome of these lawsuits will be. So just stay tuned, watch the news, but when you hear something on the internet, check it twice before acting, as a lot of it is subject to repeal, appeal, and review by a higher or different court. All right, I got through that. Give me a number one in the box if I made it through that, okay? That's a lot of legalities. Let's talk about a couple states here. And why do you need to know about these? Well, you might be getting transfers from or residents from these states in your stores for transfers or long gun purchases or orders online. So just be careful here in Arkansas. This is crazy. The governor signed into law the Protecting Medical Marijuana Patients' Gun Rights and law, and it took effect on August 1st. It actually grants permission to anyone with a medical marijuana card to obtain a handgun pistol permit. It's called the CHCL, Concealed Handgun Carry License. Believe it or not, you can get a carry permit in Arkansas if you partake in the weed culture, I guess. Now, what's the big issue here? Well, ATF and FBI are nowhere in agreement with what the governor has done in Arkansas. So we can forecast, I will forecast that within 30, 60, 90 days that the exception or exemption for the carry permit to be used in lieu of a NICS background check get repealed, get revoked. We've seen that happen in other states. So just stay tuned. But until then, you can still accept a concealed carry permit in the state of Arkansas in lieu of a background check to process a firearm. But keep in mind that if you knowingly transfer a firearm to someone who's addicted to or has admitted to being a frequent user of that marijuana stuff that is federally prohibited, you will be in violation and you can have your FFL revoked. So a lot of a lot of caution here. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Illinois, just a reminder that your Protect Illinois Communities Act is in effect now for registration of ARs by those who were grandfathered in with the AR ban that occurred last January. They have until January 1st of 2024 to register those ARs or restricted firearms with the state police, the ISP. They can do so by going online to the FOID access website. All right, so remind your customers, get them registered before they become felons and get in trouble for not registering. Hopefully this whole issue goes away as well down the road. We're hoping for appeal or repeal of the Illinois.
Yeah, something to keep in mind, JB, with all this stuff is, nothing happens fast. So anticipate 2 to 3 years of trials and deliberation, et cetera, about these things. So
yeah, and the reason we're bringing it up is Friday was a phone frenzy with what happened over in California. And again, just don't overreact to anything you hear. Don't be the first one to break the rules, right? And get in trouble. All right, FFLs in the news. A lot of stuff happens we don't talk about. We must get 20 or 30 different types of email feeds every day on issues involving FFLs, whether it be burglaries or ATF investigations, but this one's worth talking about. I know you're all reading about this, so we got a lot of calls over the weekend on this regarding the Larry Vickers case. I think it was Virginia, was it Maryland, JC, or Virginia? But anyway, Larry and others were indicted.
This is Maryland.
Maryland, yeah. Larry and others have been indicted in several states for using fraudulent law letters to obtain machine guns, period. End of story. That's about it. But this has been a multi-year investigation, multi-bureau investigation, FBI, ATF, Department of Homeland Security. But very famous Larry Vickers. I didn't know much about Larry, heard about him, but obviously we've all been reading about him over the last few days. A very influential person in the area of tactical firearms, the firearms industry, very recognized war hero, military aficionado, I mean, veteran, you name it. But hey, no one's above the law. That's what I guess the bottom line is here. Larry, like I said, Larry and others, Larry on Friday pled guilty to all of the charges. But it's astonishing that someone with this much credibility and posture within the industry would go to these means to obtain firearms or machine guns fraudulently for not only personal use, but range use and business use, but just shouldn't have done it. So violated criminal law, firearms criminal law. And he's going to be, we're going to see what happens, but this isn't going away. These are felonies, very serious felonies, and we'll read more about this down the road. But here's someone who had a business for over 20 years, and everything is basically just flushing down the drain on this one.
Yeah, let's talk about machine guns. I'm sure some of you on here may have machine guns that you acquired on law letters for demo purposes. Make sure that you actually are demoing those. For those of you that are 7.2, it's not an issue for you. But anybody that's received one under the auspices of a law letter for demonstration purposes, you do need to demo it. Otherwise, that's basically similar to what's going on here with Larry Vicker. So be aware of that. Make sure that you're doing that demonstration as you all certified with obtaining that letter.
Yeah, the calls we got over the weekend really weren't about Larry. They were about what happened to Larry. Evidently, the ATF came in and confiscated the majority of his firearms, seized them, closed them down, took all his guns, basically. I don't even know, can't even imagine how many. And they also went to private residences and did the same. And the calls we were getting were from basically SOT holders who were worried about, to JC's point, how they're officially acquiring and using the machine guns that are in their possession. And is the ATF just going to come in and seize their guns for some reason? And the answer is probably no. The answer is, unless you've been involved in this investigation and obtained your machine guns illegally, it wouldn't be a seizure based on any administrative issues, meaning errors, clerical errors, paperwork issues. But if there's anything criminal in your activities, you are absolutely subject to confiscation and seizure and investigation by, the governing bodies. So the answer is typically a no, but if you're doing something wrong, it's going to be a yes. So, stay on the right side of the law. Okay. Sad, but it happens.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about this 4473. Again, we're just going to highlight the questions we're getting. First of all, order your forms now. A bunch of you called us and emailed us and told us your forms have been delivered. The new forms have been delivered, even though it's not November 1st. So get your orders in. There's no ATF training announced yet anywhere. We don't know if there is. We've reached out, but haven't heard back if there's anything planned for the FFL community. We will be having training coming your way. If you've registered for one of our events over the last 3 months, we're going to send you our training site for free to go ahead and use for 90 days to get up and running with the several courses that we have coming down the pipe right here in the next week or two. We're very excited about that. We're not bragging yet and telling you anything more. We're just going to send it your way when it's ready and get your feedback on how we can improve and additional courses we can put out there for you. And then remember, the 4473 is ready by what date? What date is the drop dead date, JC?
February 1st, 2024. February 1st, 2024. February 1st, 2024.
All right.
And still getting a lot of questions as to when the form is required. It's required February 1st of 2024.
Yeah, no need to rush in and use it now unless you want to or have to. The ATF E4473 we checked yesterday was not updated yet either. So thank you, our government agencies, for getting everything done fast. Or not done fast. I'll add on to this. Check with your software providers. We have not heard of any yet who have the new 4473 in place or active. Our prediction is closer to January, based that it's a February 1st rollout. So, all right. Now here's the other question we got. Why can't I find the revisions for the 4473 online? Well, when you Google ATF 4473 revisions, this is the website you get. And this is where everybody goes to. So what do you have to do? You have to click this blue box here. I have no idea why they put this blue box here instead of just redirecting you. But if you click that blue box, yes, it takes you to another website, another web page within the ATF that highlights the August 2023 revisions, which are in place now and required on or before February 1st, 2024. So just make sure when you're training your team or redirecting your team to do any self-training, make sure they're going to the right website that highlights the August 2023 revisions. That's a cluster, but that's what you got to do. And if you need any of the old forms, we've gotten calls from you and many of you asking for the 2022 version of the 4473 that's no longer available on the ATF website. Not only can you get that version, you could get the 2016 version. If you've if you lost or misplaced an old form, just go out to the FFL Consultants website and hit that bonus button at the bottom of the website, and you'll find our library of documents available to you. All right. And lastly, on the 4473, everyone's calling and asking about this wonderful new or old question. I don't know how we phrase this one, but it's the 21N1 and 21N2. Which are now 21M as in Mary 1 and 21M as in Mary 2. Everything got moved up since they took out that 21B question. But these two are for alien, are for non-immigrants, aliens using a non-immigrant visa only. We all know these questions have been and always have been confusing. They still are, but now they're more confusing because they've been nice enough this time around to remove the instructions. Like they did on the prior version, we did not have the instructions. You have to read the back pages. Again, you have to go to back to page 5 to see actually how to manage this, but it's very simple. If you can remember, for permanent resident aliens or any alien immigrant without a visa, and a U.S. citizen, they will answer no to 21M1. That's it. Answer no. All right. And if they answered no, they're going to leave 21M2 blank. Remember how we did that last time around? The prior two versions had us doing it that way, and we're going back to doing it that way. But again, there's no instructions here. You just got to remember or read the instructions. And we will be updating our best practices guide. It's the Before You Begin guide for first-time gun buyers. We will be sending that out this week along with the video. So updated for the new version of the 4473 that's due in February 1st. So we'll be updating that for you to remind your customers how to answer these questions correctly. All right. Why did it keep doing that to us? I don't know. Yeah. Let's see ATF stats. So some quick ones, guys. And this is probably the part, least fun part of our presentation. And again, get your questions in, get your questions keyed into that chat box. But here's the end of fiscal year, ATF fiscal year, ending September 30th. This is where they wound up with their inspections, 8,700. If you look at the beginning of the year, their year, October, November, December, January, is 400, 500, 600 inspections per month. And look how they ramped up, starting there in March with 900, 700, 800, 900 inspections per month. We do not see that slowing down. We should expect that across the coming year. Mr. Biden is still in office, so there's no change to the ATF zero tolerance directives. And for the total year, they had 168 warning conferences and 173 completed and closed revocations. That does not include everybody else who's still pending a hearing or just got a notice. Remember, these take 3, 6, 9 months to manage through. So there's a whole bunch of other people in the hopper. We're supporting many of them. Hopefully we iron things out or delay things till after we get maybe through this next election, and maybe we could do something about the zero tolerance program. But here's the bottom line. 2 out of every 100 FFL inspections are getting revoked, 2.04%. So we don't want you to be one of those 2. Here's the offices with the most inspections. This is interesting. Almost 1,200 out in Texas, out of the Dallas office. They're on fire. Kansas City, another almost 1,200 as well. Columbus, Houston, and Phoenix, total of 8,700. Again, just a ton of inspections. But here's the most interesting slide of the statistics here. Here's the offices with the most revocations. Now, none of these were on that prior slide. So Kansas City had 25 revocations, and they did have a lot of inspections. Okay, so 25 revocations. 16 in New Orleans, almost 8% of their inspections, almost 9% of their inspections rather. 16 out of 186 overall inspections. That's crazy. So if you're in the New Orleans area being serviced by that division, be on guard, use caution, do everything right, stay compliant. Check your paper, do your inventory. Washington, same thing, Washington State. 7% of inspections resulted in revocations. Charlotte, 3.4%. Miami and Tampa each had, Miami had 4% resulting in revocations, and the Tampa office 2.5%. So you don't have to be in an area with a lot of inspections to be subject to a revocation. So use caution, be alert. Compliance Corner, JC, you're on.
All right, let's talk about officer sales and agency sales. The interesting part about this is that, if you Google how to sell a firearm to an agency, it always comes up with the individual officer sale. So here's the deal. So everybody is very clear on selling firearms to a law enforcement officer. Obviously, they have to be an active law enforcement officer. It has to be for duty purposes, not for personal use. If an officer wishes to purchase a firearm for their own personal use, then they go through the same thing that everyone else goes through: background check, 4473, etc. There are requirements for the agency letterhead certification letter. You want to make sure you follow those requirements. It has to be on agency letterhead, like I said. It has to state that the firearm is for official duty use. It has to list the officer's name and may identify the specific firearm authorized. Not necessarily a serial number, because you may not have that, but it will list the manufacturer, model, type, etc. The letter must state a background check has been conducted, and that the officer has no conviction for misdemeanor crimes of domestic violence, and that the officer is not prohibited from possessing a firearm. Again, sworn law enforcement officers only. Just keep that in mind. A 4473 is not required. It is optional. Not a bad idea if you want to do it, but I don't know why you would want to add one more 4473 to the pile. That could be further scrutinized. Again, a background check is not required for these. Disposition is entered using the officer's name and law enforcement address in your A&D record. And the certification letter is to be maintained on file for the entirety of your license. You need to make sure that if you do a 4473, that certification letter is attached to that 4473. Make sure you don't lose that. It's vitally important. Otherwise, you've transferred a firearm illegally. So again, if no LE certification letter is presented, the process is just like a regular transfer. It doesn't matter. All right. Hopefully we got this down pat now. We talk about it quite often, but we want to make sure you guys are completely clear on this. A lot of departments getting new firearms right now. So now LE agencies, law enforcement agencies, this is a whole different ball game. Okay. If you're selling firearms, say, 5, 10, 15, 20 Glocks or SIGs or whatever the case may be to a law enforcement agency, the agency needs to issue you a purchase order. All right. It has to clearly identify that the agency, who the agency is, what they're purchasing, etc. Right. You got to put down the quantity of firearms, the description, type, manufacturer, model, caliber, gauge. You probably won't have serial numbers. So, but it has to be very specific. There is no 4473 required as long as you get that purchase order, and you have to maintain the purchase order for your records. It'll be disposed of to the agency and their address. And once again, no 4473 is required. We recommend a certification letter from the chief or the sheriff, just basically stating these firearms are being purchased for official duty purposes and will be issued through the agency to its sworn officers. So that's the difference between an agency and an actual law enforcement officer. So keep that in mind. If you're dealing with any agencies, there are some specifics that you need to get taken care of before you sell that firearm or transfer that firearm to an agency or an officer.
Just a quick note here. I had 2 weeks ago, I was out on a FFL, a premium retail visit for one of our NSSF new members. And we looked back at a law enforcement, what we thought was a law enforcement agency transfer. It turned out to be an educational training facility for law enforcement officers. And unfortunately, we're trying to figure out what to do because the educational facility provided a letter which was used to transfer a whole bunch of Glocks, or just leave it at that. And there was no law enforcement chief involved in the process. So if you're, kind of like word of caution, if you're in doubt with the agency you're dealing with, if it's not clearly a law enforcement agency and you have a chief's letter on official letterhead, please give us a call before you run down that road too fast and make some mistakes we have to catch up with later. All right. Wow, how many calls do we get on this every week, JC? Purchasing used
all the
firearms.
time.
All right. So here's the deal. What are the requirements for when an FFL purchases a used gun from a non-licensee? Well, pawnbrokers are pretty good at this. Happens every day. But there's gun dealers out there, especially new guys, new licensees who, they can't find the information they're looking for to figure this out. Well, guess what? There's nothing explicitly defined by the ATF regarding how to buy a firearm, a used firearm from a non-licensee, from a citizen. How do you buy a used gun over the counter? Well, it's pretty easy, guys. You may purchase from anyone 18 years or older. Basically, any type of firearm. If it's NFA, you should be looking for paperwork that goes along with it. And if it's NFA and you're not SOT holder, make sure you are not bringing that firearm in, obviously. Call us if you got questions. Send us pictures like most people do. You cannot knowingly purchase stolen firearms. That should be a given. You should always confirm the true ownership of the firearm. Get the story, just like in transferring a firearm, selling a gun. You should always get the story of where the gun came from and why someone wants to sell it and where the origin was and what the handoff was, et cetera, et cetera. Make sure it's not stolen. You should obtain personal information from the seller. Get a copy of the ID. Get a copy of the carrier permit. Whatever photo ID they have, make a copy. Keep it in your files. Now, some states have stricter requirements, but if your state does not, go ahead and get copies. Don't be dumb. Don't be stupid. Don't not have the answer down the road if there's a question about that firearm you purchased and then down the road sold to somebody else's used firearm. Complete an affidavit of ownership. We have these available on our website. Again, go out to that bonus button on our website. You can probably find it out there. Used gun affidavit clearly states and gets your customer to sign off on who they are, what they're selling you by serial number, and it has a disclaimer in there that they realize that if they're selling a firearm not belonging to them or known to be stolen, that they may be committing a felony and can be held accountable. So it's a good scare tactic. If nothing else, we've had gun dealers present that to folks selling used guns, and the customer exits with their gun in hand. Right. Make sure you acquire firearms the same day. If you don't have a bill of sale or any paperwork to go along with it, it has to be entered into your bound book before the end of the business day. And again, other state laws may apply. Pawnbroker laws pawn, check with your states. If you're using leads online, make sure you're adhering to the program and the policies for acquiring used guns from any individuals.
Yep.
And I think that was it on that one.
And just remember, even if you're not a pawnbroker, the secondhand dealer, sometimes those licenses are required if you're purchasing used property. So even if you're not a pawnbroker and you do purchase firearms from the general public, make sure that you're checking into to ensure that you've got that secondhand dealer's license.
All right, next. All right, Jason,
Yeah, under 21. So we were getting a ton of questions on this, and this is all part of that Safer Communities Act that came down. As far as enhanced NICS process, just so you know, under 21 delays happen, period. It could be a proceed in 90 seconds, but you're going to get an initial delay for under 21. We're getting a lot of phone calls from folks that are anticipating the full, 10-day wait or delay, so to speak. Just know that may not necessarily be the case. All right. An individual under 21 will get delayed, but again, they could get a proceed in 90 seconds. Just because they didn't wait the full 10 days doesn't necessarily mean that that individual, you can't transfer that firearm if you've received that proceed response. All right. That initial 3-day delay can and will be extended by NICS if the research process for the transferee requires additional time. They may call you. You will also need to check the status in NICS. We recommend doing that a couple times a day just to see what's going on with background checks that are pending. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention. And, if somebody calls you from NICS, they're letting you know that, hey, it's either been extended or whatever the case may be with the individual involved. Okay. Under 21 customers may be proceeded at any time. So just be aware of that. Ensure that you're paying attention to Section C on the 4473 and completing all of the entries that are required. So if you're getting that delayed response, make sure you're updating what date that transfer can occur on. If you don't receive a response, make sure you're notating that, etc. You want to make sure Section C is completed. All right. And then we recommend printing that NICS status report for all transactions, but especially for these, because there's been so much kind of, different things happening because of, this. Basically, it was pull the trigger and go as far as Congress was concerned and NICS. So, we recommend you at least pull these just to have for your record, so you can always prove that a final determination was reached or wasn't reached, whatever the case may be.
And just a side note on that, again, I don't know, JC, what, 31 or 32 inspections we did last week, visits? I had at least seven, maybe 8 that we had to go pull either a NICS transaction report, meaning at the time of the determination, or had to go back and look at the query report because an employee failed to either list the entire number for the NICS in 27B or list a totally irrelevant number. we had some type of number, or we thought it was an ID number. Actually, that's what it is. They listed the ID number accidentally in box 27B. So print these reports, run your monthly queries at the beginning of each month, and keep those numbers on, in your back pocket. Basically, you never know when you're going to need them. And it may help you out of a revocation situation.
I had one this last week that the employee accidentally copied the RDS key instead of the NTN number and put it on the 4473. It was an electronic 4473. So when I looked at the number, I was like, that's not an NTN number. What's going on here? So make sure you're copying and pasting. If you're using that E4473, make sure you're copying and pasting properly. Remember, NTNs are 9 digits long. So, and they can be alphanumeric. So be aware of that. All right. We've talked about this a number of times, and it's that right to refuse a transaction for any reason, even if it's a gut feeling, as long as it's non-discriminatory. In other words, you're not selling a firearm to a person because they're black, green, orange, male, female, whatever the case may be. All right. you have the right to refuse. And this is all predicated on a court appeal, actually, United States versus Jackson 1989, where the judge actually stated that FFLs have the legal right to refuse to sell a firearm to anyone for any reason, as long as they're not doing so in a discriminatory manner. This means that an FFL can refuse to sell a firearm to someone they believe is intoxicated, mentally unstable, dangerous to themselves or others, whatever the case may be. We have had situations where FFLs have called us and said, you know, this guy is buying a gun and he told me point blank that he was happy he could buy the gun so he could kill himself tonight. In those situations, do not transfer a firearm. We've had situations where they've gone in and said they were going to actually shoot up a school or mall or other event center. So be aware, somebody may make some excited utterance like that, and you have a responsibility from a public safety standpoint to not transfer that firearm. So here it is, United States versus Jackson 1989. If you want to grab that off the internet and print it off or make a little pretty sign or whatever the case may be and post it in your stores, go for it. That is the actual case law, and that is the precedent that you can use to refuse a sale.
Yeah, and we want to share this with you because we had a client we had to help 2 weeks ago, about 10 days ago, and it took, after about 6 hours of digging, we were actually able to find the significant language. And it wasn't as simple as we thought it was. You know, we go to these ATF training webinars, seminars, training sessions every spring, and we hear the ATF say something that we've started to mimic is this line right here. It says, remember, as an FFL, you have the right to refuse any sale that you feel is unlawful or for whatever reason whatsoever. But this is the only place in a November 2008 FFL newsletter that sentence is even printed. But the good news is, like JC just explained with United States versus Jackson, along with some of the other statutes listed up here, there's enough criteria that supports the fact that you can refuse a transfer for whatever reason, as long as you're not discriminating. So feel comfortable in that. There's actually about 5 times the amount of text that goes along with this. If you ever need it, you ever have a lawsuit, and what we had was a customer who was denied with the customer for different reasons. He sued for discrimination, basically, against that gun dealer who refused to transfer him his FFL to FFL transfer. Okay, it wasn't even an in-house over-the-counter purchase. It was an FFL transfer that came in. Long story short, there's no doubt in our mind that the lawsuit will be dismissed. It's still going to cost $500 for an attorney to submit the proper documentation, you know, but anyway, you have it, it's solid, and we can move forward. All right. IOI Myth Busting, JC.
Oh, the infamous code of IOI regulations have reared their ugly head once again. Now, these are imaginary, they're all made up, and if an IOI tells you something, it doesn't matter if it's true or not, always ask for a point of reference. It's important for you as an FFL to ensure that you know what exactly they are talking about, just in case something they're providing you is misleading or misunderstood, or potentially, you know, you're afraid that you don't understand what they're telling you, so you want to get a little bit more clarity. But always ask for it. If they won't provide it in writing, at least ask for like a point of reference where you can find the information. Nowadays, very few and far between do I see IOIs giving anything in writing, mainly because their hands are somewhat tied because of everything going on in the industry right now. They have to go up through their chain of command to get permission to send you something in writing. So it's just easier if they tell you. That's fine. Just make sure you write it down and you reference it later. All right. So number 1, let's see here. You should attach all copies of DLs, carry permits, and other paperwork to your 4473. Wrong answer. There's only a few things that are required to be attached to the 4473 per regulation, and those are the only things that should ever be attached. All right. So when we conduct our mock inspections and when we provide guidance to FFLs, our guidance is this: we want to keep that record as clean as humanly possible, because when we conduct mock inspections as well as IOIs, we want to be able to get through the paperwork quickly so we can get to more paperwork. especially us, because we want to make sure that everything is good to go. So when you look at a 4473, I want to be able to get through it in 15 seconds. If there's no issues, no problems, no concerns, I want to on and off that piece of paper as quickly as possible and move on to the next one. So when you look at your 4473, is if you got a bunch of additional documents attached to it, all you're doing is create more of a headache for you, as well as more scrutiny can be used against you and evaluating your paperwork. So make sure you're sticking to those few things that are required to be there. There is no requirement for you to attach carry permits, DLs, or anything else. That's extraneous. That's just extra stuff. Okay. Number 2, if someone makes an error when completing Section B on the 4473, they have to wait 30 days before they can complete a new 4473. A lot of times what I see with this rule that doesn't exist is it was an internal policy created by the FFL, and it just carried over and carried over and carried over. A customer makes a mistake in Section B, they can correct it. Now, how do you correct it? Single line through, initial and date, and then make whatever the new change, make the change that's needed in order to continue the transaction. Remember, the ATF wants to see what the error was and how it was corrected. All right. Now, items 9 through 20, you can provide some guidance. That's the customer's information. In other words, if they only have a middle initial, you can ask them, do you have a middle name or is it just a middle initial? If it's just a middle initial, put IO in quotes. If they forget street, drive, avenue on their address and you see it on their license, you can say, hey, you have drive on your license, you need to put drive there. If you see they put USA and county, you can say, hey, listen, that's not USA. They're asking for your county. Put your county of residence there, okay? If they miss the place of birth, the city, tell them to put the city down. You know, once you get to 21, that's when you stop. You can't provide any guidance from 21 on. And the reason is because those are the prohibited person questionnaire. So you need to make sure they're answering those truthfully. Now, if a customer hands you back the form and they marked affirmative on one of 21B through M, you can hand it back to them and say, hey, listen, I want you to just go ahead and look through Section B, make sure everything's accurate and complete. Make sure you're reading everything carefully. If they don't catch it and they hand it back to you, tough, prohibit the sale, move on with your day. It's not worth your time. If they're not smart enough to read the form after you tell them twice to read the form, then they're not smart enough to own a gun. All right. That's period, the end. They can change or make changes to 21A through M. There's nothing wrong with that, but they have to instigate the change, not you. All right. Number 3, you have to keep pictures of all firearms you destroy. Not true. Very simple. Is it a good practice? Sure. But is it required? No. Number 4, you have to list all of your personal firearms on display in your bound book, even if it has a personal property tag on it. Wrong answer. You do not have to do that. Is it recommended that you keep a personal firearms record of all the firearms that you have in the store? Absolutely. Is it required that you tag personally owned firearms in the store? Absolutely. Is it required that you can put them into a safe and just mark the safe, these firearms are personal property of? Yes, absolutely. But there's no requirement for you to list personal firearms in your acquisition and disposition book involving your store inventory. Number 5, you have to conduct inventories at least twice each year. There's actually no regulation or no stipulation in regulations on how often you're to conduct inventories. Now, we recommend 4 times a year. A lot of FFLs do it 1 time a year. Some do it twice a year. Some do monthly counts. But our recommendation, tried and true, is conduct quarterly inventories. Number 6, you have to keep copies of FFLs you obtain from FFLs you are sending FFL transfers to alphabetically in a binder by year. I don't know where this whole binder thing came from. I'm seeing FFLs that were told to put 4473s that are completed in sheet protectors and a binder and all this. I don't know where all this stuff comes from. None of it's required. The only thing you're required to do is obtain a copy of the FFL for the receiving dealer, verify it against EasyCheck, and you can toss it. Now, we recommend if you're going to be doing business with an individual FFL, such as your manufacturers, distributors, things like that, that you maintain a current copy of the 4470 or a current copy of the FFL on file, just so you always have it. All right. But there's no requirement for you to keep it. It's required that you obtain a copy and verify it. That's what's required by regulation. So these are just some of the ones that we've gotten in the last month or so. Questions from FFLs all over the country that are getting that code of IOI regulation mumbo jumbo, and we have no idea where this stuff comes from. So just be aware.
All right, let's hear it for these great accomplishments. We got some winners here for audits conducted in September. And let's see, Mary out in Texas had a perfect score in an ATF audit. Woo! Congratulations. Greg in Colorado, same thing. Kerry and Ken over in Kansas. Thomas in Kansas, all scored high on their ATF audits. And unfortunately, we have a few this week. I think I mentioned earlier, we're going to be sitting in on 2 closing conferences, one of which we're pretty sure is going to result in a revocation. And now we're up to 2 inspections this week ongoing. So if you got any, remember, if you have any ongoing ATF activity in your store, please reach out to us when it occurs, not afterwards. It's always better when we hold your hand throughout the process and make sure we're in tune to what's going on so we can better defend you if the need comes. Finding out afterwards is like trying to unravel and figure out how the car hit the tree. We don't want to do that. Yeah. All right, Steve, New Mexico, good FFLC audit. It was great seeing you, Steve. Tony, same thing in Ohio. Woohoo! Thanks for the visit. We had Lucy in PA, Scott in Arizona, and JC was there in Crystal in Mississippi. All you guys all scored great. You will be set up perfectly for when the ATF shows up to do your audit. And Tony, be sure to clue me in on how that outcome is this week. We have Tony getting audited on Wednesday, and I was out there about 3 weeks ago. Perfect timing on his PRM Premium Retail Member visit, and set him up for success. Good luck, Tony. We'll talk to you later this week. All right. All right, JC, your 9 deadly sins.
Yeah, and we have to keep reminding you of all of this just because of the simple fact these continue to rear their ugly heads, and you have to make sure that your records are 100% now. There are some questions coming in about this new Office of Gun Violence Prevention. We have definitely seen a shift in the tides as far as revocations and final notices being issued. It's actually becoming quite painful for a lot of FFLs, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing, but unfortunately we can only do the best we can. So remember, no transferring a firearm to a prohibited person. What does this mean? This includes somebody that self-identifies as a prohibited person, somebody that's been denied. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are doing everything you can to ensure that individual that's receiving a firearm is not prohibited in any way. Failing to conduct a required background check. Remember, background checks are only good for 30 days. Do not release the firearm prior to the 3-day wait or the Brady date. Do not release firearms prior to your states if your state has a waiting period prior to that waiting period. Don't get caught falsifying records such as firearm transaction forms. You will get in trouble. Don't be marking extraneously on areas that you as the FFL are not responsible to mark on. Failure to respond to a trace request is pretty simple. Make sure that the tracing center has your information and can contact somebody. If you go on vacation, you can let the tracing center know you're on vacation and who to contact in the event that, a trace comes in. Refusing to permit ATF to conduct an inspection, that's a big no-no. You signed on the dotted line to obtain your FFL. And when signing on that dotted line, you stated that you understood that the ATF conduct inspections frequently. So failure to account for firearms goes right back to that inventory. Lost, missing firearms. You need to know where your firearms are at. Failure to verify and document buyer eligibility. Expired licenses, expired concealed carry permits, expired permanent resident alien cards, expired visas. Accepting a receipt for a visa submission instead of the actual visa itself. These are all problems. Not obtaining a copy of that hunting license for non-immigrant aliens. You need to be careful of that. Failing to maintain records needed for a successful firearms trace. What is this? This is your A&D record. Make sure that you are getting your A&D records updated regularly, almost daily, if not within 24 hours of receipt of a firearm. Failure to report multiple sales of handguns, and keep in mind on this, multiple sale of handguns and long guns, border states. You got Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. You have to report your long guns unless you are a type 7 FFL. All right, so keep that in mind. Failing to report those multiple sales has to be done on the day of the multiple sale, by end of business, not the next morning, not in a week, the same day that the multi-sale occurs. All right, so make sure you're getting those in and you're documenting it. If you're mailing them in, well, is what it is. But I would recommend you email them. And when you email them, make sure you copy yourself and you save that to a folder to make sure that you have the ability to prove that you submitted it. IOIs and the ATF field divisions are keenly aware of the fact that the tracing center that receives those, sometimes you'll get a received response, sometimes not the case, but you want to make sure that you can prove that you submitted them in a timely manner.
Okay. Just let me run back to the number one, and why it's number one is clear. Can't transfer to prohibited person. So if you're still using a paper form, make sure you don't have any empty boxes, yes or no boxes in section 21B, in section B rather, prohibited questions. And make sure you're not transferring to someone who may have been delayed, who otherwise has converted to a denial, and you failed to check the NICS system before handing off that delay. We always profess, check NICS, make sure you got the right status on any transfer, especially when it's the delay. And those can change at any minute on any day. A proceed can change to a denial, a proceed can change to a denial. A delay can change to a denial. Make sure those are checked every time before you hand off the firearm and print the report. Okay.
Yep.
Hey.
All right. So next week, 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks, we're having an NSSF webinar. Myself and retired Director of Industry Operations, Judy Ledoux, are going to be talking about compliance consultants from the field recap, just covering on different things that we're seeing out there as far as FFLs and our mock inspections, and what we're hearing as well from FFLs across the country. So tune in. You'll have to register on the NSSF website. That's nssf.org, or you can just Google 2023 NSSF webinars. So we gave you the URL there, but you can just Google it as well to get registered for that event. Usually about 200 to 300 folks on those webinars. So a lot of great insight to share with you. So please join us Monday, November 6th, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern.
And remember, we're not having our event in November. We're skipping. So if you got other team members who can benefit from it, it's a great supplement. All right. So if you're not an NSSF member, why not? We always ask this question, and a few of you join every month, actually every week now. But hey, if you're still worried about your compliance or your next inspection, or it's been a while, give us a call. We'll walk you more through the program. The two biggest benefits is you get a consultant out to your place of business to scour through your records and make sure your processes and procedures are all up to snuff, and that you're going to be able to avoid any revocation critical errors on your next inspection. Do some training with your staff, highlight your areas of opportunity, and then you get that big $25,000 legal defense fund protection. If you do get in trouble and don't make it through unscathed, we will hold your hand, bring in the attorneys if we need them, and make sure we do our best to help save your license from revocation. Obviously, no guarantees. It's all based on the outcome of the hearing process. But hey, be compliant, be safe, be protected, and protect your business. Get it right the first time. We'd be remiss if we didn't show this slide again and again and again. Just, hey, take a picture, download it, whatever you want to do, go to our website and you can get it right off our website. But hey, check every 4473 2 and 3 times. Again, we did 31 inspections last month at clients, and only 7 came out without a critical error. And most of those folks had a 2 or 3 person process allegedly in place to check 4473s before they get filed. But we just know that doesn't always happen correctly. slow down, take your time, and make sure somebody competent is doing it correctly. Number 2, ENICs and state background check results. Make sure you got that documentation and proof of determination when you go ahead and transfer that firearm, because again, the NICS system can change at any time on any day. And when the ATF comes to do your inspection, they're going to be looking back at the last 90 days and seeing those NICS numbers and trying to figure out if they match up to your 4473s. And if they have changed, you're going to have to do some explaining if you don't have the proof. If you have a previous inspection, make sure you have no repeat violations. That's a no-no. Previous adverse action, make sure you understand what stage of warning you sit in when you're getting your next recall inspection, and make sure, again, you have no repeat no violations at all. Even the smallest of violations on a recall inspection after a warning can lead to a revocation, and we don't want you to be there. Conduct your inventories. Complete your A&D entries daily. For those of you that are still doing paper, call us if you have problems. Sometimes you find a gun that's a couple weeks later, not entered. We have solutions for how to enter those into your paper bound books. If you're electronic, you'll certainly just make that entry, get everything up to snuff. And JC mentioned missing guns can lead to a revocation now. It wasn't so much before, but now the ATF is getting much more intense with their violations and critical violations. But having extra guns in the store not logged in is just as bad. So it goes both ways. Extra guns and missing guns can lead to a revocation. Do your inventories. Prevent straw purchases. We've covered that in other segments. If you have questions about Don't Lie for the other guy programs, let us know. Or if you need supplies, go to don'tlie.org, order your straw purchase prevention programs. Complete your daily multiple handgun reports and long gun reports for southern border states, and respond to those traces. And if you need any questions at all, guys, just call us, text us. We love taking your questions, and we love giving you the right answers. All right. JC.
Bring it at me, brother.
All right, guys, if you got those questions, type them in. We got about 20 questions ahead of us. We're going to get through these fast. So here we go. Hey, Firearms Fred, thank you very much. Haven't talked in a while, but thanks for attending and letting us know that the weed card in Florida is also permissible now for concealed carry permits. Yeah, now that's the Florida Department of Law Enforcement does the background checks. So it'd be interesting to see how they wash out with this whole issue. It's not the NICS exemption that we're talking about. So FDLE may be looking at those records and trying to figure out who should and should not have a gun. But anyway,
just remember, marijuana is prohibited. It's still a scheduled narcotic, federal standards. So you cannot transfer a firearm to somebody that smells like it, appears to be high, represents the fact that they have a medical marijuana card. It's an immediate disqualifier.
Yeah, again, just like Arkansas, just because they have a concealed carry permit doesn't mean they're allowed to endeavor in weed and still apply to purchase a firearm from an FFL. All right, Anna, Illinois, any updates on the Illinois gun ban, Anna? Unfortunately, no. The registration of grandfathered ARs, assault weapons, is deadline of January 1 of 2024, but no update on the legislation or litigation and lawsuits regarding that ban. The ban is still enforceable and in place, unfortunately. Bob says, any new word on the new Office of Gun Violence that Biden's putting together? JC, you mentioned that.
Yeah, I can touch on that. Well, they've got people assigned. They have a director, Stephanie Feldman. She comes from quite a background. She has been with the Biden-Harris administration, as well as previous to that with the Obama-Biden administration. So she was part of the team that helped Biden develop executive actions back when Biden was vice president on gun violence. In addition, Greg Jackson has been brought on as a deputy director. He is actually, his background, he is a survivor of gun violence. And he's led gun violence prevention organizations focused exclusively on the impact of Black and brown communities. He's testified in front of Congress, etc. And then the other deputy is Rob Wilcox. Rob has a pretty unique tenure with Everytown, as well as some other organizations that are gun control focused. So couldn't have three more people in positions to hurt the industry more than these three. I would suspect that once hopefully a new president is elected and it goes the right way, maybe this will all be done away with. So that's the update right now. I will tell you that things have definitely changed as far as in the tides of the revocation process and some of the things going on. And it almost seems, and it's speculation on my part, that the tide had changed right around the time that this Office of Gun Violence Prevention was stood up. It just seems like what was happening previously on first-time inspections and things like that have kind of gone away now. And we've had a few gut punches the last couple of weeks on revocations that we were not expecting. So I would venture to guess that things are going to get worse before they get better. So stay tuned for that. We'll let you know as we know more.
Yep. Dave asks, is there any change in King County, Washington State? I guess that's measure 114, Dave. Unfortunately, no. That case, that litigation is several lawsuits up there, but the primary case that's being heard keeps getting tossed around through the different courts. So still not enforceable at this point, and is still stayed. FFL Firearms read again. FFL boss has moved to the new form for you guys out there to understand that. That's
everybody's working on it. So if they were first to market, good for them. But all the providers are working on it right now. And again, February 1st, 2024 is when it's required. So
Rich asks, for an electronic 4473 that is not from the ATF, is the ATF causing problems if the PDF is not pixel perfect with respect to the PDF from the ATF?
Ruling on that, the ruling on that is pretty specific. It has to be an exact replica of the 4473. If it's pixelated or not clear or blurry, it really depends on how bad it is. But I would tell you, yes, if it's not looking good, if there's concerns about the readability of it, etc., then you should really take a look at what's going on with that solution.
And remember that's entered into law and is used to prosecute criminals for capital crimes. So that's why, obviously the trace process.
Yeah.
So it's evidentiary property of the federal government. So you better be having to use the right form.
Yeah.
All right. And the current form. RC says, in addition to the newly revised 4473, are there also new versions of the continuation sheet and multiple sale form? The answer is yes. You can go out and get those off the ATF August 2023 revision website. The continuation form, yes, but not the multiple sale form. So
you should make sure, we've seen this quite a few times, make sure you're using the most recent forms. If you haven't gone out and downloaded the new forms or requested new forms from the ATF Distribution Center, make sure you're getting copies of the latest versions. We found a lot of folks that have been using really, really old forms. You got to make sure that you're getting the updated versions.
And again, those are available right off our website, off that bonus, hit that bonus button. Donna says, Gunstore Master has switched to the new 4473, but transferring to Nix has concerns because they still have old 4473 format. So yeah, the API may not be in place. So yeah, you're going to have some hurdles, I guess. Let your software operators know and make sure they get it fixed for you. But it's not an excuse for executing as expected. So just be aware of that as well.
Yeah.
Have any of the revocations been manufacturers or distributors?
Yes, there have been manufacturers and distributors that we've supported. So, even the big box retailers are getting it. So just be aware of that. Nobody is immune from the revocation process.
Lindsay says, or asks, on the law enforcement sales side, we have a local fish and wildlife agency that purchases that duty firearms from us. Would we treat them just like an LE purchase, or do we need to fill out a 4473?
As long as they are a state law enforcement agency and they're sworn officers, then same rules apply. Yes. I would venture to guess, I don't know where you're at, but whatchamacallit, typically they are a state law enforcement officer. So
Yeah, and Lindsay, usually there's one person in the office who has that authority, one or two
Yep.
people, so.
Sometimes they're called commandants. Other times they have different terms for it. So
Dan, when can we expect a website where we can check a serial number to see if a gun's been stolen?
yeah, we've been asking that question too. We're they're supposed to have that up and running, but I think the question mark around that is still okay. What happens if you check the serial number and it comes back stolen? What then? How are they going to handle that? So I will tell you that there's questions about that, and it's still being kicked around by ATF and NCIC. So
While we're on that question, I'll ask the other one, JC, and I know what he asked. When can we use the NICS system to check employee background checks?
we're still waiting for this firearm handlers form to be approved. We know it's back in the ATF's hands for review and approval. Still have not heard anything yet. I'm going to venture to guess that something's going to happen probably right after the new year. The biggest problem that we have right now is there's no continuing resolution for the budget. So everybody's just kind of up in the air with what's going on. So I would anticipate hopefully something by the new year.
Dave says in Pennsylvania, we always could buy and sell long guns without a background check. Has this changed, as I can't find any information on this? Thank you. Dave, I'm not sure if you're an FFL or not. I hope you are, but as an FFL, you can buy and sell. Well, you can buy long guns from any customer, any non-licensee.
Yep.
But
As a licensee, you can buy a firearm from anyone in any state at any time.
and you can, as an FFL, you can transfer other long guns to other FFLs, but transferring to a non-licensee is always a background check.
Yeah.
Bob says, is there anywhere we can go to check serial numbers of firearms? We just did that one. If a person brings me in one to repair and he doesn't know anything about how it works, can we go to a website to check if it's stolen? Someday, Bob. Unfortunately, not now, but if you have local contacts with a supportive police agency, maybe they can figure something out for you. Melissa says, how about acquiring used guns for consignment, not an outright purchase? And she's a type 7 FFL.
You can obtain firearms for consignment. Just remember, on consigned firearms, if that firearm goes back to the person that originally owned it, a 4473 and a background check is required to be completed.
Yeah.
So if that person decides, I don't want to sell the gun, I'm going to go ahead and take it back, make sure you do a 4473 and a background check.
Yeah. Melissa, I came across this last week where we had a dealer bringing in guns on consignment with no consignment agreement at all in place, no contract as to what happens to that gun, for whatever reason. If it's not sold, who does it belong to? If he gets hurt, never, So anyway, make sure if you're doing consignment, you have a consignment agreement of some type in place.
Yep.
All right. Kim, how is Utah BCI handling the under 21 delays? I would assume they're handling it just like
everybody. Yeah, they all have to be in compliance with NICS, with the requirements of NICS. So if they're a point of contact state, then they have to be in compliance with NICS. So same holds true. They, have to grant a delay or a pending, or, in Colorado, they do a pending. They don't do a delay. You can't even transfer a firearm in the state of Colorado without getting an actual proceed. So they're all operating the same way. They may be using different lingo, but they all operate the way it's required by federal law.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, if you get a proceed before that optional delay period ends, you can transfer that firearm. Yeah. All right, Mike, WRT agency sales. Do we need to maintain an agency PO or other documentation if the firearms ordered were drop shipped to the agency from the manufacturer distributor and we never had the firearms in inventory?
Nope. If you've never been in possession of those firearms, there's no reason for you to do anything.
Okay. No A&D work?
Nope.
No.
If you've never been in physical possession, and that a lot of the times when you call your distributor or you call a manufacturer to order those guns, they may offer to drop ship them directly to the agency. That's totally fine. They're the ones that are responsible for maintaining the PO and ensuring the disposition is done correctly.
From Stetson down in New Mexico, Stetson. What if a customer put in information that isn't wrong, but is too much info and not needed? For example, putting the city and state of their place of birth when they were born in a foreign country, or putting their entire address, city, zip, and state included all in a number and street address. So basically putting too much information in one of the boxes.
In one box. Like, here's the deal with they're a foreign born person and they put both the city and country or state and country or whatever the case may be. That's fine. I mean, you can have them correct that. If they put all of their address in one box, everything, street address, city, state, zip in one box, have them line through, single line, strike through the additional information that doesn't get put in that box, initial and date it, and have them correct the form. Make sure they put the information in the correct boxes. That's about all you can do.
Yes, and also be sure to use a Before You Begin guide, which tells all first-time gun buyers to slow down, ask questions if they don't understand anything. So,
yep.
All right, Gunroom says on new 4473, 21M1 and 21M2, if they answer no to 21M1, then no to 21M2, do they have to correct it to leave it blank, or is it okay for 21M2 to be marked with a no?
You should catch it and get it corrected. That's what I'll tell you. Have them line through it, initial and date it. We're right back to 2 versions ago, 21L1 and L2. Same thing holds true. If they inadvertently mark the other one, you don't catch it, well, so be it. But if you should be catching those and making sure corrections are made. I'm not going to lose a tremendous amount of sleep over it as long as everything else is completed properly.
Josh asks, copies of DLs are not required. What about supplementary docs for box 26B?
No. And nowhere in the regulation does it require you to maintain a copy of whatever supplemental document they provided you with regard to either confirming their name, their full name, confirming their residence address, etc. There is nothing that is required to be attached. The only thing you are required to do is document in 26B the issuing authority of whatever it is you saw and what it was. So say it's for a middle name, it's their social security card, or believe it or not, which always causes me to scratch my head, their car registration, right? If it's a social security card for their middle name, okay, so you put U.S. Social Security Administration social security card. That's it. You don't have to put anything else. If it's their registration for their car, you put state of whatever, Department of Motor Vehicle, or DMV for short, car registration. That's it. You don't need to put dates. You don't need to put control numbers. You don't need to put any of that. You do not need to attach a copy. If you want to keep a copy for your records, that goes into your buddy file. Keep it separate in case you ever have to reference it. But other than that, no, that is not required.
All right. Sheila says we use a handwritten A&D book. Can we move open acquisition records from an older book to a new book so that we don't have to keep looking through the old books? And what's the proper method?
Sure, absolutely. We actually recommend you go through your A&D books. When you only have a handful of firearms that remain in an older A&D book, we recommend you move those to a newer one. And the way you do that is notate the date that you're moving it, and then put a note there, moved to book number, page number, line number, or whatever the case may be. Just give it a point of reference. So when the ATF comes in to do an inspection, they know that you moved that item to a new book. That's all. You just got to make sure you document where you moved it to. Same holds true if you go electronic.
Yeah. All right. Someone says Iowa has no waiting period, but across the river in Illinois, they have a 3-day waiting period. Does ATF require Iowa dealer to hold for 3 days selling to Illinois residents?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes, yes, yes. You have to follow the laws of both states. So Iowa has laws, Illinois has laws. Well, you're the dealer. You are required to follow the laws of both Iowa and Illinois. That includes obtaining their FOID card, etc.
Yeah, a great question, but that applies to every state where you have an out-of-state resident making a purchase in your location of a long gun. You always have to abide by your state rules and the state in which they reside. So If you don't know, check out our restricted states guide on our site, which is also being hopefully updated this week or next. We'll send it all out to you as soon as it is. Restricted states guide, meaning all the little rules that the other states have that you want to be aware of. All right. Dan says, hey, Fastbound regularly auto-generates a multiple sale even when they are just over the 5 business days. If you go ahead and transmit it, is there a problem? Better safe than sorry. I will tell you that if that ATF is getting mad at folks and actually calling and scolding you, if you are set up so that you are sending a multiple handgun form that's more than 5 days based on your business days that are listed at the licensing center.
Yeah.
So
yeah, remember it's 5 of your business days. We have FFLs that get phone calls when they submit like 6, 7 days, multiple sales within 6 or 7 days. So be aware, it's 5 of your business days.
And it's your business days based on your registered hours at the licensing center. So
Yeah.
make sure that's up to date.
Whatever you have on your FFL license.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the reason being, guys, is that there's administrative work with each and every one of those forms that gets sent in so that they just put those people into a computer, track track their addresses by name, etc. So that's why they're getting mad if you screw up. So try not to. All right. Bob says, how do we get a NICS report on checks if we don't use electronic version? I do all by hand, and I assume they're calling it in.
Say that again.
How do we get a NICS report on background checks if we don't use the electronic version?
Yeah. You're not going to get any NICS reports unless you have access to eNICS. My bigger question to you is, why haven't you transitioned to eNICS? Sooner or later, and it's already happening, they're committing less and less resources to phone in background checks, and it's going to get worse as time goes on. The vast majority of dealers that use NICS, they're on the electronic version, and for good reason. It provides you with that backup that you did a background check. So if you're still calling in, unfortunately, there is no way for you to obtain a copy of your NICS background checks other than signing up for eNICS.
Mike asks, how do we correctly do a private party transfer and document it?
Private party transfers, the correct way to do it, this is our recommended way, is 2 parties come in, one selling the gun to John Doe. John Doe does their 4473 and their background check. You have to mark box, what is it? 7? Yep, box 7. Nope, box 8. Sorry, box 8. You have to mark box 8. That is a private party transfer. The reason for that is we tell all of our FFLs, do not take possession of the seller's firearm until you get a proceed and are prepared to transfer that firearm. That means if you have a 3-day wait situation, that means if the individual is delayed, whatever the case may be, allow the seller to maintain possession of the firearm until you are actually ready to go ahead and effect the physical transfer of that firearm. The reason being is if you take possession of that firearm and something, God forbid, happens and that individual becomes ineligible or prohibited or is denied that sale, guess what? Now the original owner of that firearm has to do a 4473 and a background check to get it back. That's the reason why you're marking box 8. So it tells the ATF when they're reviewing your forms that there may or may not be a corresponding entry in your A&D records. So keep that in mind. Real simple. Buyer, seller come into the store, seller maintains possession. You help the individual, the buyer, complete the form 4473. They go through the background check. And then once you are prepared to effect the transfer of the physical firearm, that's when you acquire it and complete the 4473.
Good. JG says, in the type of firearm section of the 4473, I've been told by IOIs in the past that it should be semi-auto, side-by-side, pump, etc. And I've been told by other IOIs that it's revolver, pistol, shotgun, etc. Which is correct?
Which is correct. If you look on the 4473, right under dink, 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 section A, the information, there's an area there that says types of firearms include, but are not limited to, pistol, revolver, rifle, shotgun, receiver frame, and firearms that are neither handguns nor long guns, such as firearms having a pistol grip that expels shotgun shell, NFA firearms, etc. What you're describing is actions, and if it said action, then I'd say record the action, but it says record type, and it says it right on the form. So once again, there's our imaginary code of IOI regulations.
JG, the funny thing is, I was in one of our clients last 2 or 3 weeks ago, was doing it just like you are, and it was simply direction from an IOI who had no idea what they were talking about.
Yep. So
And we got that corrected, and we also reported it to the local the local office director, DIO, made a note of it for the FFL's record so that they didn't get dinged on the next inspection. So
yeah. It says it right on the form.
I know. As we say to everyone, you know, with any 4473 that comes out, especially new ones, and every new employee, have them read the form, all 7 pages. Yeah, not just the parts you have to fill in, but read the instructions that go along with each part.
It never ceases to amaze me, the nonsense that gets
I know,
brought
it's
up.
crazy. Globe says, where can I get the Youth Firearms Act pamphlets? Thank you, Tony. Tony, my student, has provided the instructions here. Thank you, Tony. Go to the ATF Distribution Center website. Just Google it, ATF Distribution Center. It's in the publication section. Scroll down to the bottom. And it's not only do you want the pamphlets, but you want the orange and white poster that goes along with it. Make sure your poster is in place.
And if you don't receive it, give them a call. That's what we've been telling people. If they're back ordered or whatever the case may be, make sure you're calling it in as well. And remember, you can print them off if need be, but it is your responsibility and a requirement per regulation that you hand one of those out with every handgun.
Every handgun, guys, including pawn redemptions. That's something new the ATF's going after.
Yep.
And your locks. Don't forget your locks.
Yep. Don't forget your trigger lock.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, RC, for providing the website there. Dave says, my question refers to the fact that the King County, Washington State is also apparently opening an office of gun violence, much like the federal one.
Colorado's doing the same thing.
Yeah. They're all jumping on the bandwagon, Dave.
Yep.
The more the merrier. And
especially the gun control states.
Yeah. The other thing I can tell you guys out there publicly, support your Second Amendment organizations that are fighting for the gun rights of citizens. The NSSF is fighting for the gun rights for gun dealers, manufacturers, importers. Obviously, support them as well. Become a member, even if it's a basic member. Call us if you need more help on that one. There are lawsuits and there are lawyers going after all of this, so they need funding and they need our help. Tony says, is there a requirement that the customer interface for electronic 4473 look a certain way? Is there a requirement that the customer interface for electronic 4473 look a certain way in appearance?
No. A lot of, especially the bigger box retailers, have designed their own internal systems. Some of them go one question at a time per screen. So I've seen all matter of different ways to approach it. No, there's no requirement. The only requirement is that the information being asked for is per the actual form, and that the instructions, notices, etc., are provided to the customer for review. Other than that, no, it does not have to look just like the form.
Jimmy says, on Mossberg Shockwaves or other similar firearms, box 4 on 4473 should say firearm and box 24 should be other firearm. Is that correct?
Box 4, if like a pistol grip firearm can be a firearm. There's any number of firearms that are actually identified by type firearm. In those situations, yes. As far as the category of firearm is concerned, if it's not a handgun or a long gun, then it is an other.
Yeah, Jimmy, depending on your IOI, they're going to allow the term firearm or pistol grip firearm, which we disagree with because it's not a true pistol grip. It's more of a duck bill, right? Duck head.
Yeah.
But pistol grip firearm. Don't use the term other. We've seen a lot of that also. It's not an other. The other is not a type of firearm, basically. So, but yes, in category 20, box 24 would be category other. Okay. Larry says, where can I go to check if a firearm is stolen? We went through that
Yeah.
before.
Yep.
Dan says, my sheriffs reminded me that if a firearm is not reported as stolen today, it might be reported as such tomorrow. Correct. Let's,
Yeah.
who's to know? Who has the crystal ball? Tony, Ohio has a stolen gun database that's available for everyone.
Yeah, there are several stolen gun databases. There's several stolen property databases. You can certainly feel free to use those.
Sarah says, can you talk more about the second-hand dealer's license? We are a type 1 and type 7.
That would be a question for what state you're in. Some states have a requirement that if you're selling or taking in used product, that you have to have a second-hand dealer license, even if you're not a pawnbroker. State of Florida is like that. There are several states like that. So I would just Google your state and second-hand dealer license to see if your state has a statute that requires you to obtain one.
I don't think, and she's from Illinois, I don't think Illinois has it, but again, just Google your state and ask that question. Yeah.
Yep.
Josh, when you transfer a firearm, a long gun, to an out-of-state resident, whose responsibility is it to know if the firearm is legal in the state of residence, the FFL or the customer?
You're required to ensure that the firearm is legal.
Yeah,
You're the FFL.
Yeah, the FFL, right?
Yeah.
And Josh, if you have more questions on that, again, we have this restricted states guide that needs a little updating since October. And it kind of highlights the states that are problematic or have other restrictions you should know about before servicing sales or customers from those states. Dave says, my question about buying and selling long guns without a background check applies to private citizens in Pennsylvania. Oh, okay. So that's a private party transfer. I got it. Yeah. Sorry for the misunderstanding. Also, family transfer do not require 4473 in PA. Last I heard. I get questions from customers or friends about this, and I said I can find no definitive info on these transactions. Dave, send me an email privately to jb@fflconsultants.com. I'll follow up with you. I don't believe Pennsylvania is private party transfer yet, but I'll have to research that. Yep. Many states, guys, have moved and are moving fast to private party transfers where gun dealers will have to service those background checks for people walking in the door, selling guns to their neighbors.
Yeah. And be aware, I mean, it is a money-making opportunity as well, depending on state law. But, you know, I always tell people, you want to get that gun off of you, go to an FFL and do the transfer through an FFL. So that way you can show without a doubt that that individual has transferred the firearm properly and they were not prohibited.
Langford, yes, rolling out hopefully one course this week on properly identifying firearms. That's our goal. We've been negligent in getting that out to all of you. And then next week, hopefully, is 4473, the new form. So stay tuned for that. You'll all get a blast when that occurs and when it's available. Tony says a Michigan dealer comes to Ohio gun show with guns. He then finds a buyer for said guns at the show. Then he finds a dealer who will take the guns on his books and initiate the sale. He transfers gun to dealer who then has customer do 4473. Any thoughts on that?
I've got a lot of thoughts on that. And there's actually a brochure about gun shows available from the ATF, specifically addressing this. If an out-of-state dealer, Michigan dealer, comes to Ohio, the way they are supposed to do it is they are supposed to transfer their inventory prior to going to the gun show. They are supposed to transfer all firearms to another dealer, and the other dealer essentially affects the sales. What they're doing is wrong. We have received word from multiple FFLs that attend gun shows on the regular, and the ATF is there, and they're not saying anything about it. It deeply concerns me that, this is happening because it's going to get you in trouble. So if you're planning to attend an out-of-state gun show, what's required is you transfer the firearms to another FFL prior to getting there. You got to remember that's prior to. And again, if you send us an email, I can send you the brochure that basically speaks about it, or you can just do a Google search, ATF gun shows, and there's a publication available to you that talks all about this.
Yeah. they're not allowed to hand, we call it a hand carry. They're not allowed to hand carry
Yeah.
guns across state lines to sell them
Yeah.
at another gun show.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Yep.
And we have ATF, as JC said, we've had ATF agents even tell other dealers to take those sales. So
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
weird. It's very weird.
Yeah, I don't know why that's happening, but it's driving me nuts.
The IOI told me when moving firearms to a new bound book that you had to use the date of when the firearm was first booked in for receiving date in the new book, not the move date.
The move date goes in your old book. That's the date you're moving it, and where you moved it to is what goes into your old book. You transfer the information into your new book. Remember, that's your record of when you received that firearm and when you acquired that firearm. So you want to move the information, the old information, over to the new book, but in the old book, you want to document the date that you moved it from the old book to the new book and where you moved it to. Now, if you're moving to an electronic, just say move to fastbound transaction ID or whatever they call it. They haven't, everybody has a different name, but you want to, document that you moved it somewhere and where you moved it so they can actually see the chain of custody. That's what's key, the chain of custody.
But to his point here, the original acquisition date never changes.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
MMP Guns, yes, finally you guys got on here. If you are changing your FFL, then use the move. Okay, he answered it. If you're changing your FFL, then you use move date, correct. If keeping the same FFL, then use the original import date or the original
Well, yeah, if you're changing your FFL, yeah, obviously you're going to record the date you acquired it from the other FFL.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. We appreciate your support.
Yeah, there are some nuances with this. So, when we say something, we're answering a very specific question. So yes, there are nuances. There are a multitude of different scenarios that you can go through with this stuff.
Kiki, thank you. We'll never turn down praise. Dan says most repeat customers don't want the lock no matter if it is included in the box or if I offer one to them. Should I document that a lock was included or not accepted in the box to cover your ass?
You don't need to record anything. You just need to give them a lock. If they walk out the door and throw it away, that's on them. You let them dispose of it, not you.
We teach this when we visit you, but yeah, if you leave a little orange Home Bucket Depot at the door with a little sign on it that says lock donations, you want the customer to at least get that far at the lock. Don't let them leave it on your counter.
Yeah,
that'll be claimed as negligence, and not
required by federal law and required by state law in multiple states. So,
let's see. Tony says some cities have their own regulations requiring secondhand licenses, regardless of the state laws. Again,
correct.
Yeah, wherever you're doing business, check your local and state laws for those requirements.
Yep.
Check your business. Check. Kyle says, when a couple is shopping together and one wants to buy a gun for the other, I need to have the person expressing genuine interest and stating they will be the actual transferee complete the 4473, even though the other person is buying it. Is that correct?
You need to make sure that the interest and intent is there. If they say, I'm going to buy my wife a gun, right? Let's just use that scenario. If they approach you and say, I want to buy my wife a gun, and the wife is engaged, she's showing intent, she's showing interest, she's testing it, checking her grip and things like that, and the husband is going to buy it, you really just need to ask, you're not getting anything in return, she's not paying you back or anything like that. That's genuine interest and genuine intent. So yes, that can happen. That's fine. You just need to make sure that nothing's being offered in return.
And that person is not, the other person is not.
And the other person is not prohibited. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Rob's Guns. Where can I get gun locks for used guns? Hey, if anybody's got some great websites or ideas, please plug them into that chat box. I know eBay has some sites where you can get them for like 99 cents or $1. Yep. Yeah. And that, for the most part, throwaway gun locks, but they work and it meets the requirements. eBay, cheap. There you go. Thank you very much, Alan.
Yeah.
All right. If anybody else has any more sites, please list
I know some FFLs are buying them off of Amazon as well. So
yeah. All right. Tom says regarding private party transfers, if the interested transferee is denied, the firearms on the 4473, but not in the A&D yet. Will this be an issue during the IOI inspection?
No, that's why you mark number 8.
Right.
That's why you indicate that it was a private party transfer. That tells the ATF that, hey, this firearm may or may not be in the acquisition and disposition record if the transaction wasn't completed.
And guys, we didn't even mention it today, but box 32 is the story box. Make sure you write the story when necessary, whether it be a couple words or a couple sentences if you ever have anything unusual happen with your 4473 document that you're putting in the file. All right. Kim says, thanks, guys. Great presentation. Thank you, Kim. We'll see you in December. Barry says, is there an issue if a customer brings the required locks back to us at a later date to give out to another sale or recycling?
It's up to them if they want to do that. You might want to warn them that they may be required by state or local law to have a trigger lock.
Yes, Barry, it happens all the time. We find that in gun stores all the time. But to JC's point, if anything ever happens to that firearm, is an accident, somebody gets a hold of it and it's not locked, it's going to be an investigation for that owner to explain the details. But there's no issue with them returning locks to the gun store. Bob, says CDNN. Yeah, CDNN, guys, is a great website. We know Charlie's one of our clients, so go to CDNNN. You'll be amazed if you've never been there at all the deals you can get. And if you're looking for wholesale, just call the sales team, and there's great deals to be had. Or sometimes all you got to do is ask. All right. Stacy says, I would love to find cable locks keyed the same for our displayed long guns. Yeah. If anyone knows, please let me know. I know Master can do that for you, but they'll be costly. And then
you're getting into commercial locks, and I don't know if they sell that type of lock as a commercial resource. So,
and but hey, here's the deal: call somebody who does it. Cabela's, Best Pro, some of these other gun dealers. Just call that, do a courtesy call, see if they can point you in the right direction for a vendor. Somebody says Regal Products does it. I think they do. They key them alike. Basically, they're just keying the locks alike is what they call it. Jeff says RSR also has cheap gun locks. Thank you. Langford, regarding transferring BBs.
Bound books.
It's been a long morning. Regarding transferring bound book, does the same apply when a business is purchased and a new FFL is brought on board with the sale? Wouldn't the new business use the date of purchase for the acquisition date in the bound book?
Yeah, you would use whatever date you're acquiring them into the new bound book. Yep.
Yeah, that's for a new FFL or
a new FFL. Yeah.
New acquisition.
Yep.
And Keith says customers have asked if multiple sales will result in ATF visit to them. What trends are we seeing in that area?
Well, that's the whole point of the multiple sale. It goes both to your local law enforcement agency as well as to the ATF. If there's a concern, yes, and that's the purpose of the form, is to notify local law enforcement that somebody has bought multiple handguns in a single transaction or within a 5-day period. If there's concern about that individual, then potentially, they could probably more than likely at least get a visit by local police. But it has happened.
Yeah, and as a reminder, guys, as an FFL, you are required to qualify every transfer. So if you have somebody coming in every 2 weeks and buying 5 Smith & Wessons or 5 Tauruses or 5 Skies, you will be held negligent if you continue those sales without challenging or questioning the multitude of firearms you're providing to them. So this is getting to be a very sketchy area. If you got any suspicions, give us a ring. We're happy to offer an opinion and even provide you language to use with that customer so that you don't seem confrontational.
Yep.
Gun Owl says, if I open an LLC, when my FFL is due next year, should I fill out a new FFL for the business and turn in the old information? So change of business entity.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, you would want to submit your application for that. I assume you're being a sole proprietor right now. If you're not, and you're an LLC, and that LLC has fallen out of good standing with the state, then you're required. But if you're a sole proprietor and you're standing up an LLC, continue to operate as a sole proprietor until you're ready to, go ahead and put an FFL under the LLC.
And Gun Owl, I don't know exactly who you are. Feel free to call JC. Got his number on the screen. He's our licensing expert. And guys, I think that is it. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Just when we thought it was over, Kyle says, my official business hours. Oh, let me just get back here. My official business hours. I can't get there. JC, oh, no screen. All right. My official business hours at the licensing center are 7 days a week by appointment only. Can the ATF accuse me of not allowing them in for an audit? And if I'm not here when they show up, I assume they can show up at any time without notice or appointment.
They can only show up during the business hours that you presented on your license application, and you would have had to have given them actual hours. What you put out to the general public by appointment only 7 days a week, that's what you put to the general public. But you had to, when you got licensed, offer actual hours of operations. So otherwise your FFL would have been denied. So, or the IOI would have told you, you have to provide actual hours of operation. So
here's some good news, guys. Home-based dealers, we have one getting inspected this week, one last week. They both got calls in advance by the IOI 3 or 4 days in advance before they came out for the inspection. So if that happens, give us a call. We'll run you through the inspection prep drill to make sure you're ready for that inspection.
Kyle just responded that apparently somebody at the licensing center doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, because you do have to put down actual hours of operation. I don't know why they have it. They've approved you by appointment only. That's completely contrary to the licensing process.
Yeah, usually they need at least 1 day with open hours.
Yeah, it says it right on the license. It says it right on your renewal.
Yeah. So guys, hey, we're going to give you a lot over the next few weeks. Watch your email inboxes. We got hopefully some good stuff coming your way. We'll keep you updated on any lawsuits that break in favor of or out of favor for us. We wish you a happy Thanksgiving and a safe and healthy November, and we'll see you in December, right, JC?
We will see you in December.